Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to another weekly reading wrap-up. Sorry if you can hear cicadas and crickets in the background. I have all of my doors and windows open because it has cooled off considerably and I'm enjoying the weather so much. Hopefully it rains again later today. I have three things to talk about this week. Not very much, but I finally finished one book that has taken me like a month to read, so I feel very good about this. So let's dive straight into it. The first thing I have is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is her newest release, a standalone science fiction novella. I have the UK edition, which is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure who did the cover of this one. This is cover design by Natalie Chen, illustration by Alyssa Winans. I love the UK editions of Becky Chambers books. I go out of my way to get them. So anyway, this novella is about the crew of an exploratory space mission that goes out from Earth. They are destined to land on like 4 different planets or moons of another solar system, explore, stay for like 4 years on each planet, and then come home. And when they are away, they stop hearing from Earth and they do not know what happened, but they continue on with their mission. The way that it's written, it's a first-person report from, I think she's like the pilot slash engineer, a woman named Ariadne, and she's kind of telling this to whoever might still be listening on Earth. If they're interested, this is what happened to the last space mission from Earth. The premise of this hooked me. A mission landing on different planets and exploring them and explaining how each of them work and how they're different and the flora and fauna of them, the geology, the climate and everything. Oh, I really love that. However, I felt like it was clunky in some way because of that first person tone. It wasn't necessarily that it was a first-person report. That made a lot of sense, but it had a more informal, conversational tone to it that just kept taking me out of the story. I think maybe I would have liked it more if it had been more formal in a way, more like an actual report. I feel like I'm nitpicking here. So that was my major problem. I just never completely sank into the story because it just felt tonally off to me. I do have to say that I'm not sure if I agree with the ending. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I think that I personally am just super different from the 4 people on this mission. The decision that they make at the very end, to me, doesn't feel like making a decision at all. And that really grates on me. I can't ever imagine doing that, especially if it were to relate to like my life and my well-being and my purpose and everything. So yeah, I will have things to say about that when I talk to some friends about this. This is what we chose for one of our little private book chats, and I'm looking forward to that conversation and what other people think about the ending of this. After that, I read an anthology called Giants at the End of the World, a showcase of Finnish weird. This is edited by Johanna Sinisalo and Toni, Jerrman. And it was okay. I think maybe Finnish weird isn't completely my thing. Some of these stories were a little bit more maybe on the horror end or on the it doesn't make sense to me end of the fantastical, which I don't always enjoy that much. So most of the stories in this were okay. None of them really jumped out at me except for The Bearer of the Bone Harp by Emmi Itaranta. I thought it was written very well. It's a little bit of a Sherlock Holmes story, except it's not actually about Holmes or anything. It goes in a different direction. But I really enjoyed the plot of that one and kind of what is going on mentally with the woman who's narrating it, who is the assistant but also like lover and partner of the man who's kind of the Sherlock Holmes cognate, I guess. Yeah, it was really interesting. I thought you could really dig into what parts of that story were saying. Oh, I should also mention that I finally read something by Pasi and Mari Jaskalainen. I've wanted to read his novel, The Rabbitback Literature Society, for years, and his story in this, The Haunted House on Rocket Work Street, was the first thing I ever finally read by him. It was an alright story. Kind of about a house that isn't so much haunted, but haunting other people, I guess. It was interesting. And lastly for this week, I finally finished 40,000 in Gehenna by CJ Cherryh. This is a standalone novel in the Alliance Union universe, so it takes place in that universe, it refers to some of the stuff that's happening, but the events of the story are unconnected to any of the other novels as far as I know. So this is about a colony of about 40,000 people which is left on this planet called Gehenna by Union and then abandoned. Like, Union always knew that it was going to abandon the colony but didn't tell them. So there are tens of thousands of Ozzy, they're human beings, but they're cloned, kind of born in labs, tape trained. They're the perfect worker bees. They're kind of an empty slate. And then there are some normal citizens there as well who are actually in charge. And so it kind of follows the collapse of civilization when the colony realizes that it's on its own and it just can't follow its original plan. It kind of takes that downward turn, splinters, and then other civilizations and cultures start to arise from the wreckage, basically. And the story speeds through about 200 years of history, and it's also really about the native life of Gehenna. There are these, I think of them as reptiles. There are these things on the cover that are called Calibans. Initially, it's asserted that they are not sentient, they're just gigantic reptile things, not a big deal, stay away from them because they could be dangerous. But over time it appears that some humans have found a way to live alongside Calibans, and that the Calibans may be sentient or much more complex than originally thought. So I really expected this to be a story, a more technical survival story, like how do you actually keep on going when you're not getting resupplied, when your technology starts to break down, when your leadership is splintering, how do you get enough food, how do you adapt to the ecology of an alien planet. The story was not actually about the mechanics of survival though, and that kind of disappointed me. It really jumped quickly over the decades with many different characters that are kind of descendants of original characters from the founding of the colony, and in that way it felt a little bit disjointed. I didn't realize for a while what the force of the story was really about. I kept thinking it was one thing when it was really another. So I think this is a case of my expectations were very much not met, and I was disappointed by that, even though the actual story, the actual book, isn't bad. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So I have read it now. I think I only have maybe 2 other books left to read in the Alliance Union universe. Well, maybe more. I keep thinking I've read most of them, and then I find a list of more that I haven't read yet. So that is that. Those are all the things that I read this past week. I am in the middle of some other things, but I actually haven't had that much time to read over the past couple of days. So some things that I thought I was going to finish this weekend are definitely not getting finished this weekend. So let me know if you have any thoughts on these 3 books that I did read. Maybe leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with another video. And until then, bye.